Me and Gavin are here today. So most of you may have met us in the past, or if you've been to the webinars before, it's me and him. We're always the ones hosting, but we have recorded all of them. So we generally do kind of some more technical stuff, so how to use parts of the tool, but also kind of subjects like this, where it's just on a dedicated part of the tool as well, whether that's kind of the bots themselves or the analytics. So I'd encourage you to go over and see our webinars there. But you can also find kind of snapshot videos on YouTube on different parts of the tool too. But on to today. So as I said, we're going to start off with the kind of basics, just so everyone who might be new to Leadoo AI understands the parts of it and how we typically use it within our bots, how you actually go about teaching it to act and respond. So how do we get it to do what we want it to do in a high quality way? So not just a kind of faceless AI chat that can tell you how to bake a cake, as well as tell about your services. Then how to use the automatic intent recognition to kind of leverage those visitors, so they're not getting stuck in a conversation loop. Because ultimately we are called Leadoo because we want to generate leads. We don't want to kind of be a barrier to that. Then some success stories and use cases, so you can see how we're actually using it with real clients. And then at the end, we'll show you a little bit of the platform on how to actually do it. So if you've already got AI, fantastic. You can have a look, you can play around and see how you can integrate it in your tools, or just to understand a little bit more about, how it all fits together. All right. Oh, before I jump into this, I will say the standard preamble, please do ask questions. We want this to be interactive. We don't want to just be talking at you. So please ask questions throughout if you're not sure, or if you've got any use cases you're thinking of using AI for. Ask us in the chat. We'll do our best to answer right here and now. We can even find some examples to show you. If we can't answer during the webinar, then we will, we can arrange that with you later and just talk to you one-on-one about it. Okay. So this is just, as I said, like the basics of what makes up a great AI bot. As you'll probably know from any of the bots that we build, we have a hybrid approach. So we don't just use chatbot. We use a mixture of different styles. They do have different purposes. So the global chatbot can be much more high level, much more general. In-page bots are much more specific. In the same way, we would take that concept when we're using AI within a bot. So it's a hybrid approach. So we're using automated, predicted journeys. We are using AI to help answer certain things and help people in a way that makes sense. And also live chat does come into that. We won't be covering this today, but these are the kind of 3 parts that make up a great AI bot. But behind that is how we make it do what we want it to do. So in basics, you've got the knowledge base. So that's where we actually train it on all of the content that it needs to know about. That could be a mixture of your web pages or even web pages from other websites that are useful. So particularly, we've got some law clients that we work with. So we've got some information off the .gov website that then feeds into that. Then also things like PDFs. So they could be things that are or aren't available on your site, but we want the information from them. Or even just copy and pasting blocks of text. So I've done that with a client for FAQs. We've just put them in as like the title and the answer, or the question and the answer. So you can put a whole range of different content in to build up its knowledge. With the prompt, so I think we'll all be familiar with prompts, but in our case, it's for the AI to understand what it actually needs to do. Generally, we would think about this as if you were teaching an intern how to answer a question. You need to really be specific about what it should do, what it shouldn't do, or how it should answer specific questions. So it's got its knowledge, but that's separate from the prompt. And this could be something where you say, if someone asks this, answer in this way. Moving on from that is the intent recognition, which I'm going to spend more time talking to you about today. But these are where we want to automatically pick up on words and phrases that people mention in the AI chat. So if they say they want to get pricing, do we really want to get them stuck in that loop with AI talking about it? Especially with a lot of customers, probably the ones on the call today, who don't necessarily put pricing on their website. So we want to give some value to that. And at that point, we want to put them through to the team. So we can automatically push them through to contact form and get the qualification and get that inquiry over to you. Or just, decide on different ways. So maybe it's book a demo. We can put them through to the calendar node to be able to book in with that as well. With dynamic suggestions, so that's where we can automatically provide kind of follow-up questions for customers who are engaging. So they're not having to write everything and think about what they want to ask. We can pull up relevant next questions to the conversation. And one thing which I will say absolutely should be in every AI chat is a static call to action. So we might have intent recognition, but always have a button that says contact us, book a demo, whatever it might be, because that way we know that someone can always click that button if they really want to get in touch. Because as we know, AI is fantastic. We can do all we want with building knowledge bases and prompts, but sometimes people just need to talk to a real human being, either on live chat or call back, after an inquiry has been made. I covered this very briefly, but here's some extra points, and we'll share this with you afterwards. I'm not going to read out each and every bullet point, but if you are trying to kind of work out how to build your knowledge bases, how to put together your prompts, these are some good tips. The knowledge base, in general, I think our biggest tip is don't just scan your whole website and have it as one big knowledge base. You will get inaccurate responses from AI. What we've worked out is to kind of break them down into chunks, categories, whatever it looks like for your company, and then train it on that information separately. That way you'll get much more accurate responses. And as I said before, write your prompt so it's unambiguous as possible. The nice thing is we've actually put together a template that we've tried and tested and works, and you can download that. And you can use that as your own prompt to base everything on and just adapt it based on what you need. So we've done the hard work for you in that case. On to intents. And I will hand over to Gavin to give you a bit more information about it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so the intents, I suppose, this really came from right at the start when we first launched AI. The first question that we asked the tech team and the clients asked us, well, how do we transition from the AI conversations into lead capture, or how do we take that conversation further? Because AI is great at allowing people to self-serve and they get the right answers, but if there's no prompt to push them on to book a demo or to get in touch, what happens next? Do they just get their answer? Do they go to a competitor? Do they come back next week and try and convert then? So it's really just trying to combine, I suppose, the self-serve nature of AI, so people can, sort of have peace and quiet to research and find out what they want, get the information they need, move themselves down the funnel. And then the intent is there to push them into that sort of CTA bracket whenever we think they might be ready. And so that's basically what it is. So it's just a way of detecting users' intent. And it works very similar to maybe the old the Google ads where you would think about keywords and phrase matches and things like that. So the idea behind will be, I've got a screenshot on the right hand side of a discovery call one. So the idea is that we have these things called utterances, which are sort of phrases and keywords. And what we're telling the AI to do is when someone uses sort of one of these or a variation of these keywords, that is intent. And we want to move them from the AI conversation to another pathway. So think about it in the way that Helen had mentioned, the static buttons. So talk to a human, book a demo sort of thing. It's basically like that, but they're essentially hidden. So whenever you're building out, and I will show you us building out towards the end of this, but it'd be better to look through the examples first. So if you just imagine that discovery call is a button, but it's hidden, no one will see that except for the AI, and it'll only be triggered whenever these things come up. And then we just need to give it a little bit of guidance, much like with the prompts and with the dynamic suggestions. We still need to tell AI how to act, because obviously, if you don't, it'll just interpret it how it wants, and it might not always work 100% of the time. So in this case, we'll say something like, trigger the next action if a visitor says any of the above statements. Use these as a way to identify a visitor's intent to speak to an advisor. And then we'll have a few different variations of those. Generally, when we're speaking to clients, we're saying, how would your visitors normally ask for these things? Obviously, things like book a demo, request a callback. Those are very sort of CTA led, like they're buttons that are on websites. But how would an actual visitor speak? Would they say, like, I'd like to speak to someone, I'd like to talk to a human? I know when I'm on chatbots, if I'm shopping online or I'm looking for information, I'll say things like, I want to speak to a human. And it's about trying to find the balance between what do you think people will say and what do you want to achieve at the end. So that's really all it is. I'll show you some examples now in a wee second, but the idea behind it is that it's more than just going into that discovery call piece. There's lots of different examples for this, and we've had a few clients try some different things, but here's some of the live use cases that we have at the minute. So like organically transition from AI to lead gen. So as I say, maybe someone's in chatting about what this solution does. What does Leadoo use to give me a breakdown of the software? What can I expect from it? And then from that we can transition them into booking a demo to see more about it. As Helen was talking about, the live chat is a really good one. If someone is getting a bit frustrated with a bot, they might just type in something like, can I just speak to someone? I need to speak to someone now. Like that would then trigger them into a live chat node. So again, going back to that idea of it's always a hybrid approach. We'll have those sort of predefined pathways built in the backgrounds. Another quite good one would be like take them to gated content. So if someone was to ask, could I see a brochure? I know I'm not ready to buy yet, but I'd love to download a brochure to look at it my own time. And then that could go to an email capture, and then we could give them the guide or the brochure or whatever it might be. And then the last one on this list it's probably the most advanced one. We've literally just gone live with this last week with one of our automotive clients, and we have a few sort of demos in the works for this one. But really, we're trying to use AI intents to go into someone's CRM or product list or their Shopify to get an idea of what stock's available, how much is that phone cost, how much is that car cost, and then feed that information back to the visitor. So really, I suppose some of the limitations with the AI and the bots before is that it didn't have a direct plug into someone's stock list, so they couldn't say, oh, I'm really interested in this Ford Fiesta. Do you have any in stock, or how much is it? But now we're able to do that by using the AI and the intent. We're able to connect those things together. So I'll show you an example of that now. So I'll just jump into a few now. Obviously, as I say, like if you have any questions or any particular use cases that you're interested in or been thinking about, if they just shout them out or put them in the questions, and we can go through from there. But I'll start with this client here. So this is Indeed Flex. So they are a recruitment company, but they also have sort of client services, and that's what we're going to look at today. So again, this one really highlights the idea of the hybrid approach. We don't see the AI until much later in the journey. So someone would have to click their employer, so they'll go down this route. Now, if they're not ready for a demo, that's perfectly fine. They'd still like to learn a bit more first. Then we'll come down, we'll show them a few videos, but in order to tailor the experience to them, we're trying to find out a bit about what they're interested in and what their challenges are first. And then, so once we answer these questions, again, we'll present them with a bit more information so that they can self-serve on their own, or if they still need information, they can come on down through and come to here, which is learn a bit more about the technology. Do you have a question? How has it helped others? Or book a call. And then, so if we go to learn more about technology, now we're into an AI conversation. So before we were pre-scripting the pathways and trying to direct people into the right area for them. And now we know that they're in to learn about this specific element, and we know a bit more about them, that we can then direct them into the proper AI pathway. So from here, someone, we haven't, they haven't been able to say anything about pricing at this point. So someone might say, I want a price, and hopefully this will work. But obviously it's a live demo, so we'll just have to wait and see. So the idea behind this is, let me see if we can say get a quote. Oh, what happened there? Oh, I clicked the button by accident, sorry. Let me just wait for this to finish loading. And if not, I'll show you another example, or we could start again. Okay, obviously because this is a live demo, this is doing this to me now, but that's to be expected. Okay, let's just try this one more time. I'll just whiz through.
If anyone else works for a tech company, I'm sure everyone can appreciate the demo effect. Everything works well until you want to show everyone.
They really did. I mean, I was doing this, I tested it all before we come up with this in mind, but obviously
all good.
AI, the robot overlords, have decided to do this to me. I'd like a quote. So the idea behind this is that we're waiting for someone to say something like, I'd like a quote, or can I get some pricing? And then it'll trigger into the intent. But this doesn't seem to be working, which is very frustrating. So I'll show you another example instead. But I suppose the idea behind that one is that, again, it's highlighting that hybrid approach of what we're trying to help direct them into the right pathway first, and then we're trying to put the AI and the intents and things like that in their pathway. So let's try another example, and hopefully this one will work. I'm not sure why that one didn't. So this is a B2B company, and they are a SaaS provider, and so they have recently deployed AI to help people navigate around their site and get a bit more information, because they've got quite a lot of solutions, quite a lot of products, and they cater for quite a lot of industries. So whenever people come to this site, I suppose maybe there's a bit overwhelming, or they're not exactly sure. They might have an idea of what they need, or which one of these would be right for them, but maybe they're not exactly sure. So the idea is that these are the pre-scripted AI responses that we can do. So if we wanted to learn more about what their key product is, which is Keyscaler, then it'll go through and show them the information about that. And this will all be pulled back from the knowledge base that we have there. Oh, and
I wonder if this is just because you're sharing.
I think it may be because we're all sharing all the screens. I wonder.
Yeah, probably.
Let me try, because it only is that. It's not getting past it at all. Maybe it is just that. Might just be a bit slow. Okay, so now if we've asked like a specific question, again, this hasn't triggered the intent yet, because it's not. That wasn't one of the. That was one of the phrases that we had put in. But basically, what would then happen then? Because we want to highlight how AI works. So it's saying, of course, what specific advice are you regarding? What do you need regarding, etc. And then it has generated those new those new dynamic suggestions that Helen mentioned earlier. So these will be based on what people have asked before. So that we see, can you tell me about pricing? And so now, because we've asked about pricing, that has triggered the discovery call pricing intent. So you'll notice the difference in how it's presented to the visitor, in that it's now taken them out of AI completely. It doesn't say AI answer here anymore, and it's now gone into a lead capture node. So the thinking behind this is that if people are saying, can you tell me about pricing, or how much does it cost, or those sort of phrases that we'd shown earlier, then it should take them into this pathway, which is their normal lead capture journey. So I'll not put this in because it'll generate a lead. This is live on their site. But basically, this would then trigger that funnel. So the person is no longer in AI. So the idea behind this, again, is just to sort of emphasize that we want people to use AI to self-serve and get the answers they need, but we want to be able to push them through and into that sort of lead capture journey. So that's one example of it. And I'll risk showing one more to see if it'll make a fool of me or not. So this is the one that's just gone live. last week, which we're very excited about this one because this is the first one that's gone live that plugs into a database. So obviously with a car provider such as this, they've got thousands of vehicles online. And I suppose it's difficult for people to know what they want. Obviously, if you have a good idea of what you want, that's fantastic, and you can find your ideal car. But if you don't, you're going to need some help. So again, the idea is that we want to lock out some of these options so that these are sort of pre-scripted. I have a problem with my car, goes down to their after sales pathway, because we don't need AI for that. That's a very prescripted journey for people to log issues and things like that. So if we said, I need help finding a car, now we're into the AI the AI pathway, and we've given a few suggestions to start with. Obviously, we might change these over time depending on what people need. But if we were to say, like, let's suggest some good family cars for me. So it's been able to scan the whole website and their stock list, and then it's been able to say, well, if you're looking for a family car, these are like our three suggested models, and then here's a bit of information about why. As you can see, the sort of themes are MPV and spacious, ideal for families, that sort of things, like sort of big station wagons and SUVs and that sort of stuff, which is great. And then at the end, the AI has asked, well, do you have an idea of what your budget is? And that way I can help narrow the suggestions further. So if I was just to say 20,000, then it'll be able to then give us some suggestions based on that information. So what's happened here is it's taken those suggestions that it's given us. It's stored them as as an input, and then it's taken the 20,000 that I've put in as my budget. Then that's gone to their database, and from there it's been able to say, oh well, because we mentioned Ford Galaxy and you said your budget was 20,000, we've given you this. Now that is a bit more because we've actually added like a 10% above it, because I suppose from a sales point of view, if someone says their budget is 20,000, if something's 21 or 22, you could probably try and convince them to go for that one. Do you know what I mean? So that's why it's gone that one. So you can see one is higher and one is lower. But then this basically shows them the cars that are there. It gives them how much it is. It gives them a link to go to that model. And then from there, they can reserve that for free, or they can do whatever they need to do from there. So that was an example of the AI working directly, using the intent and then using the connection into their stock list and CRM, which is really exciting for us. That's the first one we have live for that. So that's the examples that I wanted to show. We do have more. Helen's going to show you some. We're not going to go through all of these, obviously, just for time. Helen's going to show you a couple now, but we will be sending these slides on after, so you can click through these and have a bit of a nosy and sort of get an idea, and hopefully get a bit of inspiration about what you might want to use it for. Unless there's any questions, do you want me to throw back to you, Helen?
Yeah, just one comment on that Fords of Winford, actually. Or Fords of Winsford. Yes, got it. I would just say, I think you went into that because obviously you know it really well because you've been building it for a while. But just to kind of highlight, this is probably the most powerful use of AI that we have got right now, is that really making it kind of intuitive and interactive, and how easy it was. So none of that kind of going in, clicking the filters, scrolling through cars, trying to compare stuff. We've just shortened that journey massively. And I think it's just a really exciting next step for, how we could use that, and how that you can take that hybrid approach to kind of, I suppose, leverage the best parts of AI and, scripted journeys and static information.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was the main reason we trialed AI with them at the very start whenever they first came on, but it wasn't at this point yet. They really needed to log into their stock, and then so once we got the intents ready, then we were able to revisit it. But that was the main reason, is that they don't specialize in one brand specifically. Obviously, a lot of automotive providers are different. So for them, they're more about that sort of lifestyle approach, which is why we had those stock questions at the start, which is a good family car, a car for a first-time buyer, those sort of things, because they are in the position where they think that most of the people will be coming to shop and to browse will be looking in that sort of terms, that people aren't maybe as wedded to brands specifically anymore. Whereas if someone goes like, I want a Ford Focus, I can go and get that. I know exactly what it is. But if someone's not sure or don't really care about the brand, then they want to be guided a bit. And those sort of questions, which are, what's a good family car? Or like we go on a lot of trips. Like, would an electric car be good for traveling, 20,000 miles a year, like that sort of stuff. And then from there, the AI can show the examples. So it's doing the work for the visitor, so they won't have to go through and do all those search parameters. And then, we just by putting in their potential budget is able to get those cars.
Awesome. Thank you.
Let me put it back onto your screen.
Yes. And my less exciting examples, but I think these are going to be probably realistic for everyone on this call about how you can use this. So this is using AI, not necessarily like leveraging the intents to the level of the ones that Gavin shared, but this is the perfect place to start. So 2 quite different examples here. So this is actually a pension provider. And we're on the FAQ page specifically, but as you can see, they exist there. You can still scroll through, but of course that's not very exciting to use. So the in-page bot, which has the same AI functionality as the chatbot. So until now you've seen that, but we can plug it into the in-page bot as well. So if I just say, just provide me with all the answers, I'm going to be put into that kind of AI flow. So again, just a little bit of like preamble, because this is a regulated industry, there's a bit of information in addition there. So that's what we typically will do, just so it's very clear this is AI, it doesn't always get everything right. So a bit of cover for us, but also to say, that static call to action. If they're not getting the answer they want, they can always get in touch. So I'm just going to go for that one, just so we can see. So these are kind of suggested answers or questions that we've sort of preloaded that people can click on. But then after that, it will make them more relevant based on the previous question. The reason why this is fantastic for FAQs, because with any pre-scripted bot, we've got to kind of categorize the FAQs or pick the most important ones. It's a long and manual process, and it takes a long time for people to get their answer. So it's probably the most perfect use for AI, is being able to answer those questions when we can't really predict what someone might be asking. And just like with any other conversation, we can see the history, we can see the transcript, learn more. Maybe we generate more, kind of FAQs that are actually written onto the site as well. You can load this in from, so you can create a whole Excel sheet, there's a PDF that we can put into the back of AI. So the information doesn't have to even be on the website for us to use it. And actually, probably most typically, it's not. All the FAQs are usually collected from here, there, and everywhere. And we just kind of put it into the knowledge base for the AI. The next one I want to show you. So this one's probably more varied in that LRQA have quite a wide range of services that they offer. So it is under this kind of one umbrella, but you might have people that are looking for certification services, others that might be looking for training courses. So these are 2 quite different needs for the customers that are landing on the site, and they could be new or existing customers. So you can go straight through to AI by clicking Ask Anything. So we always have that available. We don't want to push people down some route and get stuck there if they don't need to. But for this example, I'm going to show you go through the training course route. So just like with Gavin's first example, this does take us to AI in the end, but we want to do a little bit of qualification beforehand. So we're trying to be more targeted by going down, okay, what kind of area of training course, because LRQA offer hundreds. I'm just looking, I haven't read the question coming in from Jane, but maybe I can stop for a second just to read it. Okay, good to hear. So this is the portal, as in like what happens in the back end, so how we build it. Is that what you're asking, Jane? as if so, Gavin is going to come to it after I finish this example. If not, add some more information in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to go down food, beverage, and hospitality. So I've narrowed down the type of course that I'm looking for, but I've also kind of preloaded it with these questions again, like we said. So it's now going to only answer or bring back information on the food safety courses. And I can go, okay, I'm looking for ISO. So we've got much more information that it's bringing back. And if I'd done that via the website, I'd have to go to solutions. Services, training, go over to all training courses, find it here. So you can see that that journey of getting to this point is a lot longer. And we've just shortened that and made it really easy via the AI chat. I've whizzed through those ones quite quickly, but I would say, you can go and test these out on the client sites. We also do have our own landing page on Leadoo. So if you want to sort of really play around with it, please do use that, because then we don't want our clients receiving empty leads. But if it's just to test out some of these journeys and see how it actually responds, and you can see one thing I didn't show you is, how do I bake a cake? Considering that was my example from earlier. What should happen is we can say, don't answer questions about this. And obviously I've just found like something. Sorry, this is what I shouldn't do. I should have tested this beforehand. But by stress testing this during the onboarding phase, asking it questions like this, we can make sure that it doesn't answer to them in the future. So we will be fixing that. Toot sweet.
You got overconfident there, and the AI caught you.
I know.
That's what happens.
I know. But it's a good thing that we know, and we can prevent it from doing things like this. And that's the most important thing to know.
Yeah, and when we show the demo, you'll see how easy it is to make those changes. But just before we did that, I wanted to say, like, those two examples you just showed are brilliant examples of the knowledge base being structured really cleverly, because the amount of information on both of those sites for those AI bots is ludicrous. They have thousands and thousands of pages. And so by splitting those into smaller, more manageable, and more relevant knowledge bases, so there's no limit to the amount of knowledge bases you can have in the platform or per bot. But where the difference comes is if you're trying to send the AI to search 10,000 articles or 50 articles, you'll notice a huge difference in the accuracy that it's able to get. Okay, so I'll
hand out for you. Oh, actually, just before I hand over, this is how it should happen. So you can see I've asked it that same question, and it does have a response, because it's basically saying, I just can't help you with that information. And that's what we want it to do. And typically we always put this into the standard prompt. Sometimes we need to be a bit more specific with AI because it misbehaves. But on that, I'll hand it back over to you, Gavin.
Cool. I mean, that is just a classic example of how prescriptive that you should be, and treat it like an intern or a toddler, and just say, like, if you're asked this, answer this way, or do not speak about these things. Like, because it obviously has its own knowledge base, but it still has an understanding, because it's using GPT. It still has the sort of basic understanding that it would have, so it's able to find information about certain things. And just being a bit more specific about those things is obviously better. Okay, let us jump into the platform. So the main difference with the intents and the knowledge base is that, first of all, you'll notice that there is a new area in the platform under AI called intents. So I'll show you this first, and then I'll show you how to add it into the bot. So this is completely separate from the knowledge base. As I say, think about this as a button that's going to be added into the AI, but people won't be able to see it. So these are some examples that we had in earlier. So customer support triggers the customer support pathway. And if we click on actions, you can get an idea of, well, what sort of phrases we'll be using for that. And in this case, someone would say, like, I'm an existing customer, I need technical support, I'm having an issue. Like, those are the sort of common things people might ask, or type into a chatbot if they're trying to get through to customer services. And then in this case, we've been a bit more specific about this to say like they must explicitly mention the sample utterances above, because I suppose some of these some variations of these might not necessarily be customer support. They might just be sort of prospects or people just having a nosy on the site. So I'll just build one from scratch actually to give you an idea. So if this one was sort of book a demo, and then the description. So the description is just for your benefit here. This isn't anything to do with the AI. The prompt comes a bit later. So transitioning from chat to demo booking. So that's basically what it does. And then in the utterances, just think about these as phrases and keywords that people would be saying, like I'd like to see the platform, for example, might be a good one. Can I book a demo? Can I see it for myself? Like those sort of things. And again, there's no limit to these. It's just, I suppose it depends on how you think your visitors would be typing those phrases, what words would they be using, to make sure you've covered all bases. We've recently actually did a change to this, so it's much more tighter on this, in that it's very prescriptive about like it must find these words in what you've said. So it's very important to make sure these are as you would want. And obviously you can test this as much as you'd like before anything would go live. And then in the AI guidance, this is much like the prompt. We would say trigger the intent when any of the above are mentioned. Is mentioned? Is mentioned? Are mentioned?
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. And then the meta fields, we don't need to cover this too much today, but this is specifically tied to the likes of the Fords of Winford example, where we would put in something like minimum price, and that's a number. And then this is the minimum price a customer can afford or has in their budget. And then we can do one for maximum price. We can do one for model. So if there's like, this is the brand model of the car. And then what that will do is it will store that information in the back end, and that's what it pushes into their CRM. So in that Fords of Windsor example, we will ask for maximum budget. We'll also store the make and model. And then it'll carry that into the CRM. So you only need these if you're connecting to like a CRM through an API, or if you're searching a spreadsheet via a lookup tool. Now, these are a wee bit more advanced, and obviously if you have questions about those, we can set up a separate call and we can go through some examples and go there, but it's not for everyone, so I suppose we wouldn't be covering it in a lot of detail today. So generally speaking, you won't be needing these. So I'm just going to save this for now, and then I'll go back to the bot. So I'll just load it in one from our website. It's our Leadoo AI bot. And you'll see that we've got the three sort of standard ones. They're in the sort of lighter color because that's the predefined options that we have at the start. So if we think back to the ones for that was like, I need help finding a family car, I'm a first-time driver, etc. So these are the sort of starting points for people to help them along. And then under here, you'll see intents. So choose an intent from a pre-established list. If you just click the drop down, it'll show you the ones that we have available to us. Now, you can either create a new one if you don't have one there, or you can create I would sort of suggest making the intent first and then adding it into the bot. Now, you'll see that there's a little line here, like a little border. So that is like a glance to let you know that this is an intent block. Whereas if we were to put in add an answer, book a demo, you'll see the difference here. So this one would be the one that someone would physically click, whereas this is the intent driven one. So I'll just get rid of that for now. And then you'll notice that we've got the little circle here. So what we'll do is we'll just drag this onto another space, and we'll just put in a quick form and say quick CTA. Say great. And we'll be in touch, blah, blah, blah. So that's basically where we're at with that. So if we were to then let's save this, and I suppose just like with AI, the intent will require some testing just to make sure that you've got the phrases down right. So if I were to say, can I see the platform? And so a lot of the time will be, you can see how, I suppose with just like the AI, generally speaking, it is quite quick to set everything up. We've given you the prompt as a template, so you can get started with that. The knowledge bases are easy to, they just scan, they can work in the background. Coming up with the prompts, as I say, and tailoring those, adding in bits pieces doesn't take that long. Where the time is spent, I suppose, is the testing. So in this case, we've said, can I see the platform? And because we had that as an intent builder, in the intent, sorry, it has transitioned us to this part here. So this is a really good indication of how people would be using this, because maybe if they see a demo button or they see speak to sales, it's sort of a bit off-putting. Maybe they don't want to. Maybe they don't want to speak to a salesperson just yet. But if they click, if they were to say, "Can I see the platform?" and they're automatically greeted with this, they've already sort of set out their stall to say, "Well, I'm interested in this now, so if I might as well go ahead and fill in these details because I really want to see the platform," for example. So that's how simple it is to set up. If you have AI, intent is included in the package, so there's no extra cost to that. If for any reason you don't see this in your platform, if you've got AI, let me know and we can turn it on. But it should be there. But that's really it. Unless there's anything else I need to cover on that, Helen, or is that okay?
No, I think that's good. And I will say, I think, Jane, just for your, I guess, benefit or everyone else's, we've given you a quick introduction to what it looks like on the back end. Typically, we would be building this on your behalf, but not to say that we don't want you to be able to do this. So if you've already got AI in your account, and we will share these, we've got a set of articles that walk you through each stage of creating this. So how do you build your knowledge base? Oh, yes. Good timing. Yeah. In fact, actually, I can probably take over if you put my face on the screen, so I'm not just a disembodied voice. There we go. So if you do have it already on your account and you want to kind of play around with building it, we've got these articles that take you through each step and explain things in a bit more detail. Because we didn't want to be boring you on this call to take you through all of the detail, but at least give you the introduction, and then you can go away and kind of, have fun with it, and test it out and learn a bit more. So everything is there. But if you did want to have a session on it individually, or you've got a use case that you'd like our help kind of putting together, then just reach out to us and we'll help you out with it. So on that, although it will be on the slides and we'll cycle these around afterwards, if you go on the Leadoo website and go into the support section, there is a category on AI and all of the articles are there. So they should be fairly easy to get hold of. Any questions from the audience other than this? No? Okay. Well, as we said before, there is all the webinars on the website. So there is previous AI webinars that we've done. So they are slightly different each time because we know that some of you do come along to multiple ones of these. So the last one, we looked at it more from a marketing point of view and how AI is being utilized in that way. We also did one prior to that just went into it in a bit more kind of, I suppose, the technical parts of it. So the knowledge base, the prompts, things like that. And then all the other parts of the tool as well. So please do check them out, or we'll see you on the next one.
All right. All the best, guys. See you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.